Time for a quick nosy through my fabric stash with the Show Us Your Stash 2020 challenge. Hello and welcome. I'm Akram and you're watching Akram's Ideas, bringing creative and crazy ideas to life. If you've been following me on Instagram, you may have seen the sort of mess that I've made in my sewing room here lately. And this all started when I heard about the Show Us Your Stash 2020 challenge, which was organized by Sian from Kittenish Behavior and Danny from Pocket or Two. And basically the idea is that since we're all stuck at home, maybe we could share some of our fabric stash with everyone out there on the interwebs and getting a sense of almost like coming over and hanging out and getting to actually be with the fabric stash of these individuals. And I loved that idea. If you've followed me for a while, you know that I have a huge fabric stash. I mean, a huge fabric stash. And there were specific questions that went along with this fabric stash challenge. And some of the questions were like your oldest fabric, the fabric with a story, so forth and so forth. So I decided that I was going to come in here and find those fabrics. And I couldn't find them. I was like digging through. I mean, I have so much fabric. It is hard to find almost anything. And so that got me on this whole reorganization and started labeling fabrics and everything. Anyways, I am still in the midst of this and still kind of reorganizing everything, but I will be sharing some progress, I suppose, and what I have plans for the wall of fabric, which I've kind of reorganized now. But I'll get to that near the end of the video. This video is, in fact, the Show Us Your Stash 2020 hashtag challenge initiative, whatever you want to call it. And basically, like I said, it was organized by Sian from Kittenish Behavior and Danny from A Pocket or Two, and they got together and came up with 8 questions regarding your fabric stash. And anyone can join along. You can share your fabric stash on Instagram, on a blog, or here on YouTube. And so I've decided to do YouTube. And I am just going to kind of go through the questions and share the fabrics. Now, like I said, I have a ton of fabric, so there may not just be one fabric per question. So let's get into it. The first question is, what is your favorite fabric? I have got so much fabric. I mean, it's like asking someone who's your favorite child. I mean, there is just so much fabric. But the ones that stood out right away, because I have some of them on bolts, as you can see in the background. Some that stood out right away are ones that I do have on bolts because I love them so much. I wanted to kind of display them. The first one is this crepe here. It is sort of a spring green and teal and pink, and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's a crepe. I believe I have about 3 yards of this fabric. I kind of want to make a night and day dress from Charmed Patterns, but I don't know if I have enough. Regardless, I feel like something with bell sleeves is just, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. But I'm also kind of afraid to cut into that fabric. Another fabric that's been kind of on my I'm going to make that forever list is this fabric here. This is just kind of a quilting cotton. It may be a little heavier weight than a true quilting cotton, but it is a green floral, again, pinks and yellows and very springtime colors, and it's so pretty, so pretty. So yeah, this fabric I've had for quite a while, and I kind of know what I want to do with it. I believe I only have 2 yards, and it is, I believe it's 100% cotton. I kind of want to do like a shell 60s shell top and skirt, but I haven't gotten around to it, and I think it's because I love that fabric so much. Another one that I absolutely love is this print. It's so soft, but the back of it has sort of a satiny feel to it, so I'm not really sure what kind of fabric this is. And the selvage says transfer relaxed fashion designs. But it is such a pretty print. I've got quite a bit of it here. I love the florals, the greens, the reds, the blues, and then it's got sort of this building kind of in different places here. I don't know, it's just so pretty, and I think it's the colors that really do it for me. And I'm not really sure what I want to do with it. I've got quite a bit. I probably have 4 yards of that. Another one that I've actually made stuff with is this sea turtle fabric, and it's not the print as far as like sea turtles. I mean, yeah, they're cute, but it's not necessarily my thing. More importantly, it's the colors. These are like some of my favorite colors, that deep green and blue and pink, and it's just so happy looking to me that it makes me happy. And I bought this, I believe I bought like 15 yards or something crazy. It was like on a bolt, and it was $1 a yard basically, but you had to buy the whole bolt. And I have made a honeycomb, Coco Wild Crafts honeycomb dress out of this, and I love that dress. If ever there's a day where I'm kind of feeling down and I want to just feel good, I wear my sea turtle dress, because these colors, they make me happy. So those are my favorite fabrics as of right now, meaning those are the ones that I found right away and I'm like, oh yes, I love this one, I love this one. But I'm sure there's more in my stash that I could give the title of fave fabric to. Question number 2 is oldest fabric in your stash. And so that brought up kind of 2 questions in one, is that many of you know I thrift all my fabric pretty much. I buy nearly all of it secondhand. And I was wondering if I should share my fabric that is probably the oldest fabric that I have, meaning it came from the 1960s, or if it was the oldest fabric, meaning I've had in my possession the longest. Regardless, I'm going to share both. So, way back when I first started sewing, we came across this little outdoor flea market thing on a happenstance. And they were selling these giant trash bags full of fabric. So basically what it concludes to is somebody was selling their fabric stash. Pretty much what it was. Or a relative's fabric stash, somebody else's fabric stash, they were selling it. And at first I was just kind of looking at the fabric, and then my husband asks the people, like, how much for all of it? And they're like, $8 for all of them. And there were like these 8 giant trash bags full of fabric. And that is what basically kicked off my fabric stash, is that I inherited this other person's fabric stash. In that fabric stash of fabric, there were these 2 fabrics. And these 2 fabrics have to be from the 1960s. I say this on 2 accords. Just the style of them, just the way they look. Both of them have a nice pink and gray tone to them. And more importantly, they were still folded with the little tag of when you get it cut. The tag was pretty much faded, but it said Montgomery Wards. Not Wards, but Montgomery Wards. Montgomery Wards being a major retailer that just no longer exists anymore. But the font, the way it was written, the way that it was tabbed on there, it had to be, I would say, no later than the 70s, but I'm thinking 60s. Again, just because of these prints alone, the way they look, they had to come from the 60s. And this one is a very, again, it's kind of got a sheen to it. I am not good on fabric and what fabric is what, but this one's kind of got a little crispness to it. It's not like a satin, but it's got something like that. And it's got a little bit of a sheen. I love it. I love it so much. I think there's like 3 yards of that. And then this one is a cotton. This one is very obvious, a cotton, quilting kind of cotton. And again, I love it. And I believe I might have 3 yards of this one too. So those are probably the oldest fabric, meaning that have been on this earth that long. Now, when I started thinking about the oldest fabric that I actually purchased, I found this fabric, and I was like, oh yes, totally, this is exactly the oldest fabric that's been in my possession, because it was one of the first fabrics that I ever bought. So I had just learned to sew. This was like 2012, I believe it was, around that time, 2012. So my mother-in-law bought me a sewing machine. We went down to the fabric store and we bought some pink fabric for a dress, which is a whole different story, but I still have the dress on my mannequin. And after she'd gone through the process of showing me how to sew and stuff, I wanted to make a second dress. I wanted to make something else, and I had gotten into Crafty, which is now Blueprint, and I'd gotten the Sew Chic Patterns. I think it's called the Day Dress. It was a Crafty course for like vintage sewing, and I'd gotten that pattern along with that course, and I wanted to make this fabric, or use this fabric for that dress. I'd seen a dress that cost like something like $100 some odd. That was probably like from one of those pinup sites, very similar to what I wanted, and it was this print, and I found this print at Hobby Lobby. So my husband took me down, and we went down and we bought this fabric, and then I was just too scared to ever do it. I was just too scared to cut into this fabric. I think I have 5 yards because it was supposed to be like a circle skirt, and I just was scared, and so I never did anything with it. But that's still kind of the plan. That's still kind of what I want to do. But this has been basically since like a few weeks after I learned to sew, I had this fabric. Now, if you listen to Sian from Kittenish Behavior, she is often saying that the hobby of buying fabric and buying patterns and sewing are 3 different hobbies. And she is completely right, because as I was going through my fabric stash, as I was cleaning, trying to find all this stuff, I came across fabric that I bought before I even learned to sew. Like, couple of years before I learned to sew, I was buying fabric and I had forgotten all about it. So let me share what is technically, I didn't even realize, is older in my possession than the ice cream fabric. And it is this fabric here. Let me kind of pull it out. So it's this fabric here. So right after I got married, I obviously moved into my husband's house, and we had this big window, and I wanted some curtains, and I could not find anything that I wanted. I wanted to do sort of a tiki beach theme, and I couldn't find what I wanted. And of course my husband's like, well, maybe you can just make some, because obviously his mother, my mother-in-law, sewed, and you know, it can't be that hard. I had sewn some as a kid, you know, very randomly, so I figured, you know, just a fold over at the top, I'll make some curtains. So I went down to, I think I bought this at Walmart actually, 7 yards of this fabric to make curtains. And as it so happens, I never did it. I don't even think I had a sewing machine at the time. So I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was thinking, oh, I'll just go over to my mother-in-law's and borrow hers and I'll make it. But it never happened. It never happened. And I still have this fabric, which is crazy. So I've been buying fabric before I learned to sew. And I like it so much too, this fabric. I'm gonna probably make like a Hawaiian shirt type shirt for my hubby. And I might make a little play suit because I have like 7 yards. I'm definitely going to use it. I just totally forgot that I even had it. Question 3. What fabrics are you scared to cut into? So I have 2 fabrics to share with that, and I probably have many more. Like, I'm kind of scared to cut into that ice cream fabric. So last summer I went to Dallas with my longtime friend from college, and we went down there going to go fabric shopping. And we went, was it Warehouse Fabrics or was it Golden Dior Fabrics? It was either Warehouse Fabrics or Golden Dior Fabrics. They are on Harry Hines in Dallas, where all the little fabric outlets are. And we had actually gone to Dallas to go see the Dior exhibit at the Dallas Museum of Art. And there was in the Dior exhibit this blue lace dress that I'd seen. After we went to the exhibit, we went to the fabric shops and I came across some blue lace. I found this piece, which was maybe a little bit, maybe 2 yards, maybe a yard or so, but it's kind of wide. And at first I was like, what am I going to do with that? But then I found a second piece. So these were on the remnant bins, where they have like this back table, like, oh, everything's $1.99 by the yard, but you get whatever cut is. And so I got these 2.
To see more episodes like this, be sure to click the like button, subscribe to Akram's Ideas, and hit the bell icon to get notified of new episodes.
I think there may be 3 yards, at least 2 yards for sure. I want to make a similar dress to something that I saw from the Dior exhibit, but I'm not really sure. I'm kind of scared to cut into it. I'm kind of scared to, it is a lace. It's a soft lace, though. Obviously, it'll have to be interlined. And I'm not really sure what I want to do. But the fact that I saw something similar at the Dior exhibit and then came across the fabric, I had to. I had to have it. And I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do with it. Another fabric that I'm kind of scared to cut into is this denim. So I don't know if it's going to show up as well. Actually, it shows up pretty well on camera. But this denim has this amazing floral print. It is a non-stretch denim. Yeah, no real stretch. But I came across this at one of these antique stores, and I think I paid like maybe $5 for it. Maybe. There's a good amount there. I'm gonna say at least 3 yards. And I want to make a denim jacket. I have not cut into this because 1, I don't want to screw it up. 2, I have not made a denim jacket before. 3, I have 3 potential denim jackets that I could make. I have the Buttrick one by Gertie. I have the Seamwork one. And I have the one by Itch to Stitch Patterns. So there are 3 different denim jackets. I haven't made any of them, so I don't want to risk choosing the wrong one for this fabric. And I'm not really sure which one is the best pattern since I haven't made any of them. I might end up with the Itch to Stitch one just because it does have the cup sizes, and so that may be easier to fit. But at the same time, the seam work should already be drafted for C cup, so that may be an option as well. I don't know. If you have made any one of those 3 denim jackets, let me know which one was your fave. But I just have not cut into this. Another problem is that because I love denim jackets, I have like 6 denim jackets, ready to wear jackets in my wardrobe. Ones that I bought, ones that were gifted to me because everybody knows that I love a good denim jacket. So the question is, do I really need to make a denim jacket? But I mean, come on, what else is this gonna be? It's like screaming to be this amazing denim jacket. Unless you think it could be something else. Regardless, I'm kind of scared to cut into this. And there's a lot of other fabrics in my stash that I'm scared scared to cut into. Question number 4 is, what fabric do you not have a clue what you're going to make with? And again, this could take days because I've got a ton of fabric over here. But the one that came to mind is this fabric. So this is like a taffeta or something, like, I don't know, it's something like that. This was $7 for 7 yards at an antique store. And it's so pretty. At first I thought, oh, I'll make curtains because it kind of has a curtainy weight. It kind of has a curtainy look to it. Now that I'm looking at it, though, I feel like they're horizontal stripes when I thought they were originally vertical stripes. But I don't need purple striped curtains in my life. So it begs the question, what do I make with 7 yards of this? I think some kind of suit would be kind of cool. But again, I mean, it's I don't know if you can even see, but it's got sparkly thread through it. So it's got these little sparkles and white, and it's lavender, and it's just really cool. It was such a good price. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I really don't. And I've been showing you the wrong side of it, actually, now that I look at it better, because this is really where the sparkles are. And again, it's a horizontal stripe. Isn't that pretty? Yeah. I have no idea. If you have a suggestion, I've got 7 yards. It's kind of a heavyweight. It's kind of have a little bit of a sound to it when you scratch it. Kind of like a taffeta or something like that, but not as quite as heavy as that. I'd love to know what you think I should make with it. Question number 5 is to share a fabric that has a story. And a lot of my fabric has a story that I could come up with. But I actually came across 2, and I thought I would share these. So there is a little town between Tulsa and Joplin by way of Kansas called Crestline, Kansas. And in that little, I mean, it's like a strip of a town. It's just a drive-through town. And there is, on their main street, a little antique store called Peddler's Junction. And there's typically a booth there that sells fabric. And one day I went in, and they had like 10 some odd yards of this fabric here. So I don't know if you're going to be able to really see this, but it is kind of a very sheer cotton lawn. And it's got like that puff print on it. It has got a sort of teal background and yellow flowers on it. And like I said, it's about 10 yards. And I, of course, come in there all the time. I'm the fabric lady, as people call me in my regular haunts. Because I'll come in and buy whatever fabric's there. And there at Peddler's Junction, I always buy all their fabric from the little fabric booth. And when I brought this one up to the counter, the lady at the counter told me that the lady whose booth it was, when she brought this in, the owner of the shop who was at the counter, was ecstatic to see this fabric because this is the same fabric in a different colorway that she had used for all her bridesmaids dresses back in the 80s. And she had such nostalgia seeing this brought into the shop. And she had told me that she was hoping that this fabric would go to a good home. And knew because I bought so much fabric and that I sewed that it was going to a good home. And so it's just kind of like a fun kind of like story, I guess. It's just one of those things like people already knew, like, oh, it's the fabric lady, she's gonna buy fabric. And then the fact that this kind of had some nostalgia for the owner of the shop, and she was like, oh, I hope, you know, this gets used. I hope somebody buys it and something good will come of it. And it kind of almost put like pressure on me because now I'm kind of scared to cut into it. There's quite a bit here. I've been thinking though, because it's sort of a sheer cotton lawn, I've been thinking about doing the Arita blouse from Charmed Patterns with the new bishop sleeves that was recently released as a Patreon extra, and I have that. And I thought, wouldn't that be kind of pretty as an overlay over like a slip dress or something like that? I don't know. That was my initial thoughts. I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below, because again, these are just my initial thoughts. But that was the story for this fabric. I have another fabric, which I don't think I ever showed, that also has sort of a personal story to it. So, not last year, but the year before last, my husband has been wanting these little kit planes that you can't get anymore. And he's been scouring the internet. It was something that he wanted ever since he was a kid. And it was getting close to his birthday, and he had come across the plane set that he wanted, and it was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this is the first week of classes. You know, I teach, so, you know, it's hard to get away. And his birthday is that weekend, and he's like, you want to hop in the car and drive down there in 24 hours and go get these planes and stuff? And I couldn't resist, because one, it was his birthday weekend, and two, it was something that he had been talking about like forever that he wanted. So we go down there all the way. It's a bit of an ordeal and everything. But while we were there in New Mexico, and Albuquerque of all places, it wasn't some place that was like on our bucket list to hit. But we rushed down there in like this 24-hour period. And actually it was more like 48 hours, because we just couldn't do it for the full 24. We had to stop and break, so it was a full weekend. But we did manage to stop at an antique store while we were there. And I picked up this fabric. It's 2 yards of a sort of chiffon type fabric with these appliques on them. And the appliques, it's weird because it almost feels as if it was printed on. It's not raised above the rest of the fabric, but they're all cut out where the applique is not, and everything else is sheer. So I got 2 yards for $5, and this was kind of my New Mexico fabric, kind of that random, let's go do something crazy in 24 hours fabric. And so I've had this, and I'm not really sure what I want to do with it. I think it'd be pretty kind of overshirt. It's got that sort of Hispanic look to it I like. I think that looks really pretty. But yeah, this is my fabric with a story, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to make with it. But I thought it was a fun kind of personal story to share. Question number 6 is precious fabric. Now, this fabric could potentially also be part of the oldest fabric, meaning fabric that is older than I am fabric. But this is fabric that I came across. It was random. It was like one of these bags of fabrics. It wasn't just setting out. It wasn't being cherished. But it is a sort of a panel print kind of deal, where it's got 4 panels of the same thing. And it's, well, I'll just show it. It's a Disney print. And it's obviously vintage. So it's 4 panels of the map here on one sheet. It is a knit fabric. It's one of my favorite fabrics to work with. It's like that stretchy, doubly knit type fabric with a sheen to it. But I love this. I mean, it's so vivid in color. The characters of the Disney characters come across like late 60s. But of course, you know, Mickey's got that sort of Davy Crockett look, so it might be older than that. I'm not really sure. But it could also be 80s, because they did some stuff in the 80s where they were doing some of the retro Mickeys and things like that. So I'm not really sure. I love this fabric. It's so precious because, I mean, what are the odds that you're ever going to come across something like this Again, Disney related, vintage, you know, it's very rare. And because of that, I really don't think I'll ever cut into this. What I think I will do is I will frame this, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it, and I want to make sure that I preserve it as nicely as I can so that I can hang it up in my living room, which is already done up as sort of a world explorer type room with maps and stuff. So I think it would look great in there. But this is probably my most precious because I feel like it's something you will never find. Like, it's just so rare. Question number 7 is your dream fabric. And you know, this one's hard for me because I don't know fabric. I mean, I know what a quilting cotton is, I know what a cotton jersey is, I know what a lycra is, I know what a rayon is. I'm wearing a rayon, which, if you're wondering, this is the 1940s wrap dress from So Over It. But I'm not too sure, like, I'm not sure what some of the other fabrics were, like that stripy fabric that had that feel of taffeta or something. I'm not really sure on different types of fabric, and personally I don't like to spend a lot on fabric, and I have so much fabric that I can't think of a fabric that is just a dream. Like, I would never pay hundreds of dollars a yard for fabric. I can't even imagine. However, with that said, I do have the princess coat pattern from Charmed Patterns that came out earlier this year, and I think it would be really nice to have some really good quality wool coating to make that pattern. Not that I need another coat in my life. I've got a ton of coats. I've got a ton of vintage coats. But if I want to do that pattern justice in the sense of, you know, the scale of it and the way it comes out and this epicness, I feel like you would really want a nice weight wool coating. And that is something that I do not have. And I think that's the only thing that comes to mind when I think of dream fabric. Question number 8 is, where do you store your fabric? So, as you may recall from my past videos, I have this big wall where I had all my fabric stored on shelves, but I've since been reorganizing. So you can see that I've got some fabric over here, but my main objective with this, if I come over here, but my main objective is to organize them by length. So here you can see I've got the 7/8, 1 yard, 1.5 yards, and I'm just going through each one. So I'm measuring them out and going through them as I clean. But wait, all this fabric that you see here that I'm still sorting through, the fabric that's on the ground over here, the fabric that's in the chair, again, I'm sorting through all this fabric because there is still more fabric. Now, this is the walk-in closet to my sewing room, and you can see the fabric goes all the way to the top, on these shelves, everywhere. It's even bleeding onto the floor here, it's everywhere. So I have all this fabric. This, again, is mostly quilting cottons and some basic fabric here, but yet there's still more. This is the walk-in closet to my auxiliary / pattern room. And as you can see, I can barely walk in here because I got also some suitcases and other storage in here. But this is where I keep all my jerseys. All the jersey fabric that I have is in here. And then also like some foam and quilt batting and things like that. So that's a whole nother closet full of fabric. So I have a bonus question, or prompt, I guess I should say, and that bonus prompt is Sian made me do it. So Sian from Kittenish Behavior, I love all the fabrics in her stash. She has such fun prints and everything. And like I said, last summer I went to Dallas and we went to the fabric outlets out there, and I found this quilting cotton with these toucans on them. And I don't know why, but it made me think of Sian from Kittenish Behavior. It made me think of her, and I'm like, yeah, she'd totally buy that. And I was thinking, you know what? I'm gonna totally buy that. And so I bought 5 yards of this. It is unfortunately a directional print, but I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I thought that I might make a circle skirt out of it. Being a directional print, I'm not sure how well that will work. It is only 45 inches wide. I think also another fun dress that might work really well with this is the Jessica dress from Mimi G, which I do have that pattern, and I think that might be a really nice dress. Or even the Nina Lee Q dress might also be really fun for this. But yeah, this is the fabric, and this is the one that I'm gonna say that Sian made me do it, because normally I'd be like, what am I gonna do with that? But then I was like, no, she'd totally buy it. I'd buy it too. So that is the Show Us Your Stash 2020. As I said earlier, I have so much fabric because I had such a hard time finding all the fabrics that I wanted to use for this challenge, and some of them I didn't even realize I had, and I was digging around, and because I was moving everything, I've gotten so much other fabric that I love the show and tell. Like, here's this fabric, and some of it I've already gone through with you guys. You've seen my fabric hauls, but I thought maybe you would just like to see more as I go through my rearranging. So I thought I'd start a new little playlist called Stash Stories, where I share some of the fabrics in my stash periodically with you guys, as well as some of my other stashes, because I have a huge pattern stash, which you guys haven't even seen. And then I have like my sewing book stash and a couple of other things, but I thought, like I said, I might share more from the stash. So I would love to hear your comments below if you're interested in that, as well as sharing my progress on sorting and reorganizing all my fabrics. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Akram's Ideas, and thanks for watching.
The Show Us Your Stash. Let me do that all over again. Question number 3 is... Because I have such a hard time finding fabric.